Who's kicking us off?
That's a good question, Spring. Is it you, me, Sarah, Scott? We got the whole panel here, which
Yes.
just means the more people, the more fun we're gonna have today. So welcome. I'll kick us off, Spring. We'll get it going
Do it.
because you got a lot of talking to do here in a little bit. So I want to save you a little bit of oxygen. But gang, we're super excited to welcome y'all to today's webinar. How Spring's team is pacing for 750 sides this year, Spring, with a surprisingly simple tech stack. So that's the big thing here, y'all. And we're very fortunate to be joined by our friends at Sierra. Scott DeRuyter here is joining from the Sierra side of things. And Sarah, our special guest appearance, I apologize that you're not here on the intro slide deck, but Sarah is Spring's right-hand woman. Making sure everything flows seamlessly with technology, systems, everything, as far as I'm concerned, Sarah. So we got a good crew here today. And, let's just do a quick audio check. It looks like some folks are saying hello in the chat. But if y'all wouldn't mind just typing in where you're tuning in from, we'd love to hear where y'all are listening from, what market you're in. And while we do that, let's get into some introductions, y'all. I'd like to kind of keep things moving. I know we've got a lot to cover today. And the one thing I want to point out is that you all have, our attendees, y'all have a great panel of highly intelligent people, subject matter experts. And my goal in hosting any webinar is to make any panelists or guests that we have be accessible to you all. So if you have questions, want to learn more, you hear something you want one of us to dig into a little bit more, send it into the chat. My colleague Francis is on standby to help answer questions. We're going to save 15 minutes at the end to do live Q&A if there's anything that we can't answer through the Q&A or chat module. So, we've got a lot to cover, but we want to make it as interactive as possible. So stay tuned at the end to have any questions answered live that you want to get into. So with that being said, Spring, the lady of the hour, what's going on with you?
Hi, friends. So thanks for being here. Scott and I are both at Inman. So we're in our hotel rooms. I'm like, that looks familiar. I see a lamp and a bed behind you. I
framed my picture behind my wall there, so it looks pretty good.
I was fortunate enough that my husband got a room that had like a couch and stuff. So I'm like, oh, I don't look like I have a bed behind me. But thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited to share. I'm passionate about our business. We're growing. This year, like you said, we're on pace to do 750. I actually think we'll massively outpace that. So I don't even know where we're at, but I know we're at over 500 units so far, and we're in August. So
592 right now.
Yeah, 592 is that what you said? Yeah. So we will outpace that. What I'm really excited to share with you guys today is what we're doing and how we're making, how we're using Sierra and Sisu to do this. I coach a lot of teams across the US, and it's quite interesting to see how complicated their tech stack is and their back end. And so I really want to show you how simple we have made it to be able to grow and scale. I asked Sarah to be here today because she truly is my right hand, and she's an amazing director of operations. And quite frankly, you guys, I'm great at running a business and understanding what to do, but the back end technical is her. And so she's going to be powerful to listen to of how we have things set up to really streamline everything. So Mac, I'm grateful to be here. I'm a huge fan of both Sierra and Sisu. And so I'm just lucky and fortunate to be able to share with you today.
Well, thank you both for being here, especially taking time out of a trip and being at Inman. I know there's a lot of good stuff going there. So, we're excited to have you join here. And yeah, it's it's almost a bit of a pandemic. The bloat that we see on the technology side of things with real estate teams. There's so many options out there. And we just appreciate being a part of what you built and it being rather simple. And obviously Sierra has a lot to do with that. So Scott, we'd love to learn a little bit about you too, because you've recently joined Sierra, but actually have a real estate background.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mac. Appreciate being here and joining with Sarah and Spring. So really the background is 20 years in this industry, as an individual agent, struggling and figuring everything out on my own, using Top Producer back in the day when I actually got a CD-ROM and put it into my computer, and I got to update like every few months, right? That's kind of when I got my starts. And then, you know, progressed into the real estate management and leadership with Keller Williams for a good period of time. And then on to Realtor.com, and did a whole bunch of work with Realtor.com on online lead generation and how the Realtor.com products connections kind of changed the industry as far as with Zillow and the leads. And then kind of finally, right before joining Sierra, I was running a team with my wife in Atlanta. We ran a team called Housing and Home Group. And then this amazing opportunity came around with Sierra for me to kind of get back to my tech roots, back to my days with CRM and technology, and join them just this past April. So happy to be here, and happy to be here at Sierra.
Welcome. We're happy to have you here, Scott. And, you know, throwback to the CD-ROM, we're getting a lot of comments around that. I haven't heard that in a while, but I swear I was at a conference recently and I stopped by the Top Producer booth and they were handing out CD-ROMs for free demos. You could just install it, but I said I didn't have a CD-ROM drive on my iMac. So no, I'm just kidding.
Well, no. So in all seriousness, there was this real concern about not storing your data on your own laptop or on your own PC. And meanwhile, by storing in the cloud, it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to us, right? We wouldn't have a SaaS business today without that first step. So kudos to Top Producer back there for pushing the envelope. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And then, you know, I don't like talking about myself. Also have been in the industry for a little while. Spent some time at a company called Boomtown. If y'all are familiar, before transitioning over to Sisu, nearly a year and a half ago. And it has been just an incredible journey. So, you know, I just like to surround myself with people smarter than me and get them talking and sharing their experiences. So let's dive right in, gang. You know, as I mentioned, questions, 15 minutes at the end to have those answered. If Francis or myself can't get to them through chat, but we want to save some of the best ones. So if you have something that's really, you know, piquing your curiosity, let us know. We'll get Spring, we'll get Sarah, we'll get Scott to chime in and answer. Also, this is being recorded, and we will send a link to the recording after this wraps up. So diving right in, gang, you know, I think we all know a little bit about building the foundation for a thriving real estate business. In order to do 750 plus transactions in a single year, you need to have a pretty sound approach to lead gen and building your database. So I'd kind of just like to start by opening it up to y'all, Spring and Sarah, and get y'all talking about your approach and mentality to lead generation and building your database.
Yeah, so I think it's a multifaceted component, but for the way that I started, just a little background, you guys, when I started real estate, I worked for a land developer. And so it was high end, and it was back 20 years ago, where they did a little bit of online lead generation, and then the client consumer would come in on their vacation. When I transitioned, because the market shifted, I transitioned into what I call the metro market, which is what all of us primarily work. And I had no idea how to lead generate. Like, I had never worked my SOI. I was never trained that way. And so the first thing I did was I had a friend who said, do you have a Boomtown platform? And I was like, I don't even know what that is. And you guys, this was like years ago. And at that time, it was exclusive. You can only have one per area. And she's like, you need to buy internet leads. And so that is how I started down this journey of building the team. Is I started with internet leads. And so I did PPC. I had a lender pay for some Zillow, and that primarily was it for a really, really long time. Transitioning, so that's kind of our background. Like, we are very heavy in the online internet space. Like, it's just been our foundation. We run an interdependent model. So from a team perspective on lead generation, we are very heavy with Google PPC. Obviously, we run that through Sierra. We're very heavy into Zillow, Ojo, OpCity, Realty.com. And then we expect our agents to prospect as well. So to build their database, work their SOI, do open houses, use the Vulcan dialer. So we're a mixture of all of it, but I would say from a company lead flow perspective, we are building it off of the online internet space.
Awesome. And Scott, so, curious, we've got a screenshot here, and I'm, kind of looking at that. I'm assuming that that's your Sierra site, Spring, along with a lot of other integrated sources. What are you doing to consolidate and streamline? I imagine you're not just, there's not just one primary source that y'all are leaning into, correct?
You mean on lead flow?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's not. So, I mean, we're pretty heavy on PPC leads that come directly into Sierra. We also, like I said, we're a Zillow Flex team. We have a great relationship with realty.com. I know those are area exclusive. So if you guys don't have it, check it out. I can also connect you, shoot me a message. We have a great relationship with Ojo. So we're an Ojo Plus team, and OpCity. So those are kind of our key internet ones. Obviously there's all these others, like I know there's a ton of them, but those are our primary lead sources.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then what I was going to kind of add on that is the great thing about this. I mean, I've heard you speak on this, Spring, is if it's not in the database, it doesn't exist. And
totally.
This is a great way that Sierra has done a ton of direct APIs to connect all of these different lead sources, as well as some lead parsing and other ways to get all of those lead sources into one place for your team.
Yeah, for sure. So everything comes in to the database. Like a big part of our success this year, you guys, is we went back to the foundations of real estate. And what I mean by that is probably second, third quarter of last year. I don't know about you guys, but it was a massive like, oh crap moment in my business, because obviously rates started going up in March, but we didn't feel that effect until about third quarter. And my agents were used to picking up the phone, going and showing a house, writing an overpriced offer, or non-refundable earnest money, all of that. And so they weren't, even though they had Sierra, we have it all in there, it's all in the database. I don't think they were really working it correctly. Like they weren't being consultative agents and building that relationship, because they didn't have to, until this market started shifting to where it's like, oh, you mean somebody's not going to buy a house overnight? You mean they're not going to just call me? And so this is where having that database and everybody coming into that one place that we monitor. So we have a full system in place, which Sarah can walk through or answer questions at the end, but everything goes into Sierra. And then from there, we decide if they're going to stay on lead flow, if they're going to get paused, like all the transitions, but everything starts in Sierra. And then the really cool thing is then it connects to my CSU. So the only tech stack that we use when people ask, they're like, what are you using? I'm like, Sierra, CSU, and we have a G Suite. That's it. But it all starts in Sierra.
Absolutely. And then just out of curiosity, because I'm looking at the websites and just having been around, I know that there's a lot of options out there. What is it that really attracted you to the Sierra website in particular as a means of a top of funnel lead capture tool? And maybe Scott, you can chime in here, but what kind of sets it apart for you in your mind?
Well, let me tell you, and then Scott, take it over. So we were on a competitor for years, for 10 plus years. And so we recently just shifted over to Sierra in the last 2 years. And it was a pain, not from the Sierra perspective, but from a company perspective, that we have tens of thousands of leads, like training a new agents on this. But I believed that Sierra had a better product that made sense for us. And so it's why we were willing to do it. Some of the things, the reason why we chose Sierra and how we have it set up is, one, I love their lead ponds. So, and Scott, you can dive deeper into this of like how they work and whatnot. But having that capability with the different lead ponds was a game changer for us. Two, I really, at the time, we were going heavy on an ISA department. So you guys had the capability to have multiple people assigned to a lead. So I could have it assigned to an ISA, and I could still have it assigned to, an agent. I chose to go with Sierra when I was making this transition, because I didn't want to have multiple tech platforms. Like I didn't want to have, and I don't want to name names, but I didn't want to have like an IDX feed to then flow into my CRM that then flowed into all these things. I wanted a one-stop shop because I don't believe that we need some crazy robust, like, oh, I mean, don't get me wrong, Sierra is robust, but it doesn't have to be so crazy technical. The biggest component is that all the data goes in and it talks to, for me, Sisu. And it's also easy enough that my agents actually know how to use it. And that was the biggest thing for me. I'm like, okay, first from an operational standpoint, I don't want a lot of expenses. Like, I don't want to have all these tech platforms I'm paying for to use a small part of it. The second thing is I got to have something that the agents know how to use and can use it easily, and then it can talk to Sisu. And so that's why the decision that we did to move to Sierra. Scott, I'll let you talk about like all the things that you guys love, but those were the big components of why I chose to do it. And the thing is, Phil, it's not overwhelming. Like that's why I chose it, was it made it very, very, very simple for us instead of having a bunch of overwhelming tech platforms.
Yeah, I think you summarized it. And I think the key point there is it's simple to use. I kind of say it kind of feels, very colorful, like a box of Crayola crayons, right? It's just simple and basic, and it all makes sense. It's very logical, and it's easy to pick up and learn. The websites too are dynamic in the sense that they're our proprietary code, and they're very, very good with Google attribution. And so when someone does a search for searching homes for Utah or Salt Lake City, your website pops up to the top and it has great SEO in addition to the PPC that you push towards it. So we're not a very heavy code rich site like some of our competitors with WordPress or Squarespace. So that's number one, a really big advantage. And then I think, you really kind of nailed it on the, with the simplicity. When you bog an agent down with too many leads, if you have, say, 500 leads in your database, you're not going to know who to call. And by having the lead pond ability, that leads can be put in and out of, and you guys can control the leads around there and let them have a certain quantity of leads to focus on. And they can kind of throw some leads back into the pond, take some leads out. It really keeps them focused on the leads that are raising their hands, right? They're using some of the behavioral triggers that are in Sierra to say, hey, these are going to be great leads to follow up with. I need to reach out to them. So great points.
Would it help you guys, Sarah, maybe talk about just for like 2 seconds how we have a few of our ponds set up? Because I think this was one of the really cool features of what's helped us. So our conversion ratio, you guys, so we'll bring on a new agent. After 2 weeks of them going through onboarding and boot camp, we put them in on lead flow. But during those 2 weeks, we give them access to a pond that they can go fishing. And so they're going in, they're fishing for these leads that people haven't touched. And so maybe just hit on what those parameters that you have. But it's pretty cool because it automatically gives an opportunity for agents to be like, wow, I can enter the business and have people to reach out to. So maybe to hit on that for a second, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's showing you a screenshot of some of the lead ponds we have set up, and you'll see that there's multiple people listed as the assignees. So one of the things that, like Spring was mentioning, that we offer to the agents that are new are these ponds. So we have them set up as high quality, low quality, but that is not something that is going to make or break a lead. High quality just meaning that we're paying a different amount for them. But on the back end of Sierra, they also offer, when you're setting up user profiles, you can actually just put the number of leads that each person should be assigned. One, this gives us eyes on and transparency of how much the agent is actually working, as well as how many dials are going. Are they calling our qualifies every day? And are they actually making, are they hitting our expectations on how to actually work a lead being new to the business?
That's cute. Whose child is that? Your child? That's so cute. It's summertime at the Utah Life.
I'm looking around. I'm like, did my 3-year-old sneak in here too?
That is so cute.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Well, and then I think I'll just tag on to that. And so when an agent, gets a new lead out of that pond and they set up a property search, it's done right in the CRM. You don't have to click any links and go to a separate platform to set up the property search. It's all integrated into the CRM. And if it's something that's going to be simple for the agents to use, they're going to use it. One last thing I'll make on that, and then I'll kick it back over to Spring, is that, if the, a lot of times agents kind of default, right, to the MLS because the MLS search is really robust. One thing about Sierra is that our search criteria to set up the property searches almost mirrors the MLS, which makes it a much more granular search and, gives those clients what they're looking for in those property searches.
Yeah, all I was going to say was how you're saying, hey, make it simple for the agents. Well, honestly, it needs to be simple for us. Like if as you as a business owner are not understanding or being able to utilize all the features, then go and get the training, but you want it to be as simple as possible. The second component to what you just said on that, Scott, is we teach our agents all searches have to come from the CRM, because then we can see what they're actually looking at. They can mark their favorite. You know what I mean? Like we know where on the MLS, you don't have, at least on ours, I know every MLS is different, but we don't have that transparency to see like what the consumer's doing. And I also, again, back to like simplifying your tech stack, everything in one system. Like that is the key for us on our team of like Sierra and Sisu. That's all you have to learn. That's all you have to know. And then you'll be successful.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. And, to that point, Spring, I think a lot of times the mentality is more is better, right? A lot of team leaders will be like, oh, I'm going to add this solution, to provide more value for my agents. Mm-hmm. But truthfully, the, agent adoption of technology is one of the bigger challenges that a team leader can have. And almost by whittling and paring down what they have to focus on, as you mentioned, that's going to be, the best value that you can provide, and the training and support for these agents is key. So, with that being said, kind of transitioning to talk about, filling the funnel, building the database, moving over to conversion. We mentioned the pond accounts being really crucial for new agents, which I love, that you're automatically just having them come in and have opportunity to start working through and learning the ropes of the system. But also, I'm just kind of curious about y'all's approach in general to make sure, the new agents are hitting the ground running. Existing agents can continue to convert at a high level. What are some approaches you're taking within Sierra or otherwise to ensure that y'all are continuing to convert? Because I feel like there's a good story there given your production numbers, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a saying like, if you are the what you accept for your standards. And so I'll have to admit, I don't know that we had a lot of standards around lead flow and lead gen until last year, where it was like, oh my gosh, we are not converting and what is going on. And so to answer your question, we are very heavy in the CRM and in Sisu, which people are like, what is Sisu? We'll get to that here in a second. Yeah. But so the way that we operate is when a new agent comes in, if they're brand new, they go through a 2-week boot camp that's like 9 to 5, tons of different things. We call it Hello Week, and then they go through onboarding. But at the end of that 2 weeks, they have to pass up their buyer consultation. At that time, they can go on to company lead flow, which I'm not going to walk through all of it today, but that's when we start putting them in. They get access to their Sierra on day one, though. So we start putting them on day one. They get in their database. We'll give them access to, on day 2, we give them 10 old leads from the pond that they have to call, text. And that's for us to see if they're willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting on the phones. And they have to do it from the system, so we can hear the recording. We can see what the text messages said. We can see their activities. So literally from day 1, they're getting their accounts and profiles. Day 2, they have to start working in Sierra. And so that's how we've done it. Now, in terms of conversion and new agent versus experienced agent and stuff, the way we work our lead flow is all off of standards. So the conversation with the agents is, hey, we are a vehicle and you get to choose how fast you want to drive it. And if you want to drive a Prius, I'm cheering you on and we'll help you get there. And if you want to drive the Ferrari, you can have that. But this is going to come down to what you're willing to do. And so that comes down to if they're willing to follow up the leads, how we expect based off of the lead source and what the conversion. So we measure everything differently based off of if it's a Zillow lead or an Opcity or an Ojo or a Google PPC. But what we do, just to give you guys like 30,000 square foot view, is every single Sunday at 3 o'clock, we have a VA who goes in and does a database CRM audit on every single one of our agents of their categories based off of where they're at in the CRM of what they have them tagged. If they're prime, active, watch, we have criteria based off if the leads categories, let's say, is prime, that means that they are like in it. They're working on, I like to consider like they're hot, like you're dating them like they're a hot lead. And so prime for us means that like you're talking to them once a week, you're in that conversation. So if they don't have in their system that they, in their database that they have had that follow-up in that week, then they're going to get marked on their scorecard. If they're 80% or below, they're off of lead flow for that week. So coming up on Sundays at 3 o'clock, it's pulled. Mondays at 4 o'clock, they get a thing that says, congratulations, you are on lead flow this week. Pick which day you want, deal day, and they get the leads during that time frame. Or they get an email that says, congratulations, it looks like you are super busy. We're going to give you the week to get caught up. When you're caught up, let us know and we'll get you back on lead flow. So, I mean, this is like a full class that I won't get into, but that is how we use it, and we audit it like crazy, but that's how we get the conversion from it.
Yeah. So Spring, you just said a ton in that.
Yeah,
and
I know. Sorry, guys. I'd like just vomit it all over you.
So let me break some things down. I think it's really critical. So number one, through Sierra, there's a built-in dialer. So those calls that you have to track are being tracked through Sierra, through the built-in dialer, right? They record the calls. So if it's a permissible by state, then, you know, if you have to disclose, sometimes you have to disclose that you're recording the call, but you can record those calls for your training, you know, just to hear what the agents were doing to help them improve with their scripts and their dialogues, right? And then text messaging. You can text through Sierra, ringless voicemail drops through Sierra, all without adding any additional technology. It's all in there. And then even, well, going back to those behavioral triggers and action plans and things that we talked about before, we can have text automation in our action plans. So a lot of systems don't have that features and that functionality, but you can text right part of Sierra. And then lastly, just released is group texting. So if you wanted to do an introduction to a lender or an ISA handoff, you now can do group texting right within Sierra to use that functionality as well. So a couple key points you touched base on. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it does everything, which before I was paying for Mojo, we had a text platform. Like it really was, when we made the decision to switch over, it really was to put everything in one place that we could just have a streamlined, even down to what you were talking about earlier with your IDX, not your IDX, but like how you're built for the search capabilities and all of that. Like that's a massive component for us too. So,
and I would say even as the director of operations and being able to see on the back end of Sierra, your filter systems, like you guys can filter everything that's on that main site. So it does help even our back end team be able to get eyes on what the agents are actually doing. So that's another pro for Sierra.
Yeah. Very awesome. So, hey, just as we transition, I just want to point one more thing out. People are probably wondering, all right, so we're going to talk about Sisu and we're talking about this data in Sierra. Like, how does it all transition? How does it all work? Right. So the first thing just to talk about is that Sierra and Sisu just made an API, a direct API. So the two systems now talk to each other directly. There's no need for any third-party software to connect that data together, and it's a much richer, connection, right, of this data. A lot more characteristics come through with this direct API. And then for the agents, it's as simple as applying a tag. When you get to say that appointment set stage, and we're going to talk about this next year, you apply a tag within Sierra that kicks off that transaction and brings all of that rich data over into Sisu. Everything from that lead source to when the lead first came in to, you know, where they're searching and their names and all that great data. So with that, I just wanted to paint the picture for everyone. That is how the data gets seamlessly integrated into between these two systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Yeah.
So, you know, kind of shifting gears here, you know, there are some questions around how is Spring kind of tracking and measuring agent performance, you know, and that's where Sisu starts to come into play, you know, whereas a lot of the action and activity happens in Sierra to cultivate and nurture leads and opportunities in the database. You know, once things are starting to get moving or understanding, you know, what's the hang up in an agent's pipeline, where could they be doing better? That's when Sisu starts to really come in and it starts to pipe over. So I think we've got a screenshot here, Spring, Sarah, of what's going on. And I imagine this is a big part of, you know, what y'all are doing to look at agent performance and compiling data to understand who's on lead flow.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, this is our dashboard. I don't think these are exactly our numbers, but if it is, we have a lot of blue. I actually messaged my team yesterday, my leadership team. I said, we have a lot of blue for the beginning of the month. What's going on?
What does that mean, Spring? What does the blue mean?
Blue means we're cold. We're not on pace, but I'm looking at, so every month we reset our goals. So Sisu, for those of you guys are like, what is Sisu? Sisu is the tech platform that we use to run our business. So we use Sierra for all of our lead generation and our CRM and following up with the client. And then we use Sisu to run the real estate team component of it. So we use it for our dashboards to track conversations, appointments set, met, signed. But it's more than that. Like, it's not just the dashboards for our agents and our team. The whole back end is how we run our whole operations, from contract to close, to on and offboarding, to submitting of paperwork, how we communicate with our lenders. I mean, absolutely everything in our business is ran through Sisu. And the reason I wanted to do this webinar, again, is we are in a lot of conversations. We coach a lot of teams, and everybody's just so bloated of how many things they're using, whether they're using Google spreadsheets or Excel or this tech over here or one for transaction management. And it's like, you can literally consolidate and have everything in one place and simplify your tech stack. And so Sisu is what we use from once they go in, they're working the lead, and they always stay in Sierra. But when they hit appointment set or appointment met, we tag them as a appointment set in Sierra. It automatically will transition into our Sisu in the pipeline. This is what we use to coach our agents of like, who's in your active pipeline, who's hot, who do you have appointment set, who do you have appointment met. On top of that, then it's also, like I said, the back end, and this is what you have on here, is the workflows of the agents to the ops handoff, which I'll let Sarah maybe hit on this of the Sierra tags, but it is literally how we run our business. I live and breathe in Sierra and in Sisu just to make educated decisions of what's going on in our organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Spring, I really think you covered it. Sierra is a very user-friendly type platform. So it's honestly right-hand side of the screen, and you just add the tag. There is no like rocket science behind it. It's just a very flawless pushover. And then the agents will update accordingly based on Sisu's side and just keep that transaction moving.
Yeah. So they can tag it. So they can tag in Sierra, like they can hit one of those tags and it will automatically populate into their Sisu. The reason why this is so important is it's just not need double entry. So there's no double entry. They don't have to go to different, it literally is right there. Or when I say double, a duplicate entry. And I think that that's like the key again of simplifying to getting your agents to use anything.
Yeah, I think that's a key point is like, let's say today you set the appointment, right? Today's the 8th of August, and then you meet them 2 days later on the 10th of August. When you hit the tag on the Wednesday, the 10th, it'll actually fill in, that's the date that it met. And then going back to those rings and those circles a couple slides back, that's how those dates get filled in, right? That it's now a set in that one date, then it moves to a met on the next date. And then, you know, when they sign a buyer or brokerage agreement or a listing agreement, the date they signed moves that to the sign date. And so just by hitting those tags in Sierra, it updates that flow in Sisu.
Yeah, and just so you guys know how I run my business is I can tell you based off of those rings. So in my, like, when you know your numbers is when you can make educated decisions. So for me, I know every 5 appointments met is a closing. That is our like our metric. We know it. So right now I'm saying if we want to have 400 appointments met, I think this dashboard's off, divided by 5, actually it's 80 closings. So the goal for this month is actually more like 90 closings. So Salt Lake City is intentions to do 30, and Davis County is to do 69. So both the leaders are saying, hey, I want to do together, we want to do 99 transactions. So we actually need to change that number. But if you're looking at this number, and this isn't up to date, I don't know when this was screenshotted, but if I'm looking at that number, I'm going to say, well, we're in the blue, we're not on pace to hit our goal, right? Or, hey, we're in the blue on buyer under contract and listing under contract, we're not on pace to hit the goal. And you can see right here, they have the goal of 65. Again, this might just be for Davis County. I don't know. Nope, it says it's for the whole team. So the dashboard needs to be updated from an organizational, from the organization of what their goal is. But this is how I can lead and say, hey, this is where the numbers need to be at from an agent. Every agent has that dashboard, and then same with the company. Now, Mac, you had a couple of slides forward. It's not just the, hey, how do I know my numbers of what I can convert and make this into a business? On top of that, it's creating a really cool experience for the client. And so you've got on the back end, it's got a client portal that this is where everything happens from contract to close. So this is what we use for our transaction management software as well. That our VA, Sarah's amazing. She runs a team of several VAs that do our transaction management out of the Philippines, but they all work from the back end of this with their workflows. And then the consumer also has a login with an app that you can see on the right-hand side of this. They did a split screen that shows that where they're at. So they're 36% of the process of them buying, right? And you can see it's almost like it's got a roadmap of exactly where they're at, but the lender communicates in there, title can communicate in there. And so it just creates a really streamlined process for everybody involved. And it starts in Sierra and then it ends in Sisu for us.
Awesome. And so Spring, you're saying that you all leverage VAs to really create efficiencies and make sure that this is scalable at your production level?
Yep. Yeah. So we Sarah runs operations, and then we do have a licensed transaction coordinator who does any of the licensed paperwork requirements. But other than that, then everything is ran through Sisu, and with the task lists that are just because every file goes through the same process pretty much, right? And that task list is ran by our VAs in the Philippines. So
awesome. And moving along here, I think, just being conscious of time, there are a couple more slides I wanted to get through and then leave 15 minutes for questions. I've been seeing a lot come through, and I want to thank everyone for staying engaged and being patient with those questions that you've submitted. And Francis, thank you for queuing some up, and hopefully we've answered some as we've gone along, but I'll have to review here too. But the big part of really any system is the data output and understanding the impact that it's having, right? So curious to get your take, Sarah, Spring, how you're leveraging maybe Sierra and Sisu to understand commissions, financials, and really what's driving profitability, because that's the main goal, right? I see and hear a lot of conversation around profitability. Things are getting a little tighter. So obviously a streamlined approach to system building is very attractive. So, you know, curious to get your take on commissions and profitability in CSU and Sierra otherwise.
Yeah. So if it's not in CSU and Sierra, it doesn't exist, right? Is how it works in our world. So everything goes into CSU. So all of in the back end of CSU, you can do when they fill out their form, when they're submitting for a buyer under contract or a listing under contract. Part of that form is what are the commissions, what are the splits, is there a referral, and it has a little calculator. It just populates it for you, and it can create a CDA as well, which in the back end. But there's several reports, and when I started using CSU, and this was before I had Sarah, but I had a few different operational employees. I was able to eliminate one of our employees just because so much of it now got automated in the back end of CSU. I didn't have to have somebody creating a bunch of reports for me. But you can see in the back end lead source ROI. You can see conversion ratios, who on your team is converting what leads, cost per lead, conversion per lead, conversion per source. You can see your income reports. You can see it all. And so you can see on this one, they've got on here that there's 83 transactions for $40 million, have a total of $1.3 million coming in. After referral fees, I have a total of $1.18 million coming in. Then from there, we have $653,000 being paid out to the agents, and we have a net profit of $707,000. I can pull that up at any point, like it's automatically created from the back end, and see where our income levels are going to be at. And so this has been massive for us, Mac, for us to make educated decisions. So for example, I'm at Inman right now. So one of the meetings I had last night, I just said, hey, I want to execute on this listing side. I said, Sarah has a budget of 10 grand a month. Go get with her, get the credit card and make it happen, because I know I can track it in the back end of Sierra and in Sierra and in CSU to be able to say, are we converting on this and does it make sense? And so it just helps me be able to make educated decisions of what's working in our business and what's not, that I can go and be willing to spend the money and know what I'm spending money on works. I can't tell you how many like shiny objects, you guys, I've bought over the years because I've gone to an Inman or I've been at an event, or somebody told me like, you need this lead source. And so you buy it and then, or you buy the tech or whatever, and it doesn't work. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me. Like, and so that this helps you make those educated decisions of like, okay, great. These people might be getting like massive results, but I'm not getting massive results. So I can feel good cutting it and hold my money responsible. And I think, Mac, that's like a really big thing right now. There's a lot of people who are pumping out some business. They're not making any money. And it's because they're way overspending and they're not watching their conversion ratios. CSU literally does this on your back end, that I can pull it up and be like, boom, all right, turn this person off lead flow. Let's increase this lead flow. Let's cut this. It's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a defeating feeling too, if you're working that hard and have a high level of production and you're not breaking even, right? So, yeah. You know, let's help with that if that's a struggle. And, you know, certainly that's one of the purposes of hosting this as well, is showing that, you know, a team leader can do massive production like Spring with a very streamlined and simple approach to system building. Obviously, you have very, you know, smart people like Sarah helping facilitate a lot of this too, but, you know, it can be done and the blueprint's out there. And hopefully this is starting to frame a lot of that for you.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Mac. This is a thing I love about real estate, is people are literally giving you the blueprint always. Like people, like, this is the one industry that's like, this is exactly what I do and how to do it. You just have to execute. Like, bottom line, it's so insane. And that's something I love about it. Creating repeat clients. What do you want to hit on this?
You know, I think, and it was good because there was a question earlier, you know, obviously we talked about creating an incredible client experience. You know, the appointment set, met, whatever, the just, you know, the decision is there for getting it in a CSU and starting to manage that pipeline through to a transaction closing. What are you doing to then, ensure that in the future, when that person comes back, they're wanting to work with you again, right? I imagine it goes back to Sierra, and maybe Scott can chime in as well, but curious to get y'all's thoughts and what you're doing to be intentional about creating repeat clients in the future.
Do you want the truth?
Yeah. I want the truth.
I'm joking. I am kidding, kind of. So, the one thing I feel like with me is, I just tell you what's true. You guys, we've done a horrible job about it. Sierra has the platform. You can see all the check-ins, all this stuff. But from a business owner, if I'm being very vulnerable with you guys, we run an incredible business. I'm really proud of it. And the one thing I think I've done a poor job at over the last 2 years is really creating that repeat referral business. And so, Mac, it's actually our rock for this quarter. Awesome. Is Sarah shaking her head because we have recognized that we've done an audit. So the way we have Sierra set up, if the phone rings from a lead source, it's going directly to the agent who gets the lead, answers the phone, gets the lead, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the thing that's happened is a lot of times that lead's already in our system. And so we've had to put a stop on it so that if it's in our system, that we have a VA pull it, and we're like, whose lead is this? What's been the follow-up, etc. Well, we did an audit, you guys, and 70% of the leads coming in right now are already in our system. So from a business owner perspective, when I saw that number, I'm like, 70% of the leads that are coming in from all the sources we're paying for are already in our database. And it's, you guys, because we're 20 years deep. And it made me realize, I'm like, I am doing a really poor job of creating that value that they come back to us, or they think of us, or they think of that person who it's in their SOI. And so, Mac, I know this wasn't probably the popular answer of being like, hey, this is exactly what we do. We've just done a really bad job at it. So our plan is to go in and Sarah's actually building this out right now, of creating more of those touches, having more of a client care, doing some smaller micro events, doing some client events. We're going to build out a difference between past client and SOI, because I think your SOI doesn't want to be spammed, right? And so I don't want to spam my SOI. I want them to have like quality content and touches. And so it's going to be a little bit of a project, but I'm excited for the challenge. And I'm just being candid with you. I haven't done a good job about it.
Well, I'm going to bridge a gap here and, connect you with my good friend Scott over here, who might have some input and advice on, how to leverage Sierra to do some of that. I don't know. This is turning into a mastermind more than just a webinar. But, Scott, I want to give you maybe an opportunity, or Sarah, if there's anything you want to share about what you're working on. And as y'all are doing that, I'm going to start pulling up the questions, because I know we're at about 10 minutes out and we've gotten a lot of great questions.
So I'll just say this real quick, is that, Sierra can be good for post-close transaction follow-up as well. And what I mean by that is you can have action plans for your SOI. You can have action plans, that if you wanted to use just the DTD2 to call your sphere and do the 2, right? I'm sure you guys have heard that before. It can remind you to make those quarterly calls. Or if there's a past client and you want to ask for referrals, ask for Google reviews, you can put action plans in there that automatically do those types of outreach as well. So, certainly something can be operationalized on the Sierra side.
Awesome.
Love it. Yeah, I'm in. Well, I'm going to connect with you and be like, Scott, can you help me here?
I've got a dear friend in the chat too, Christy Buck, and her counterpart Samantha. I think you may have met her at the CSU Mastery Workshop Spring, but she said she has a very detailed client plan. So y'all will have to connect with Christy, because she's great people as well. So thank you, Christy. Yeah. Maybe we'll have to have a follow-up on, what's been working so well for y'all. But let me hop over to the Q&A. We got a long list, gang, to get through. Leanne, they're new to Sierra. They want to know what's different. Hopefully we've covered that now. If anyone wants to clarify on that.
Real simple. real simple, Mac. Sierra is a front-end website and CRM to nurture your leads. Sisu is a great deal creation, deal management, transaction management, contracts to close, reporting dashboard that follows it through all the way to paying out your commissions if you're an indie broker or a team that processes that way. So the two stacks together could tell the whole story.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Clayton, you asked where you're tracking leads and conversion, et cetera, within Sisu. So there's a back end reports. There's several. There's probably 20 reports on the back end of Sisu. There's about 4 that connect with lead ROI, lead source ROI, what agents are converting them, cost per lead, all of that. So if you have Sisu, it'll be on the left in the reporting, and there's several of them. You do have to fill in, depending upon what you have built in with your integrations. And then you might have this, and Mac, maybe you know this, or Scott or Sarah, does it automatically now with Sierra, with the new integration, do the leads automatically go in on the back end, the lead count per source, or does that have to be put in?
Our source definitely comes over in the API.
Yeah.
So we would
cool.
have to just double check on the total counts, right?
Yeah. But my point of that is, as you put that in, then the back end just tells you, okay, you had this many PPC leads, and you put in how much you spent. So you will have to manually put in how much you spent per month, but you spent 15 grand. So your cost per lead is $20 a lead, and you have this many, and this is what's converted and where you're at in the pipeline. It's really cool. So you don't have to, I love this. We created a spreadsheet. Yeah, Clayton, like the really cool thing about this is this eliminated so many spreadsheets in our world, because you put it in one place and it just starts populating all the different forms and the data that you need. And it's crazy powerful to be able to make educated decisions quickly.
Hey, there's a question there from Paige H. I just wanted to grab, there's 2 of them together. We can kind of pair them. Paige, as far as how we compare to competition, I would really suggest jumping on a demo with our team at Sierra and having them run through the value proposition. I think that'll be your best way to kind of do a side-by-side comparison. But to your specific question, can you text video through Sierra? The answer is no, not at this time. You're talking, we can do like memes and like photographs and things of that nature, but to do a video at this time, we're not quite there yet.
I love that you led with memes, Scott. It's probably the most popular thing to be sent via text right now. I mean, my group texts are just, memes. And
those are multimedia messages. They're different than SMS, right? Yeah. So they take up a little more capacity.
Delancey had a good question about how you organize your lead ponds. Sarah, I don't know if you want to get into that at all, or
yeah. Absolutely. So we have a few large buckets. Like we said, Google PPCs all go into one. Those are typically offered to our agents for deal day or additional lead sources. Our Zillow Flex, we do keep separate, as well as our rent to own, just because they're different conversations. That would be very similar to our lead ponds as well, with realty.com, where we have cash offers and just regular people like looking to sell their home. So we definitely have our ponds as outcome based. So if it's a different conversation, we do have to separate those buckets. If not, they'll go into one bucket where our ISA will be pinged on that as well.
So let me just make sure I clarify. So based off of lead source, because of the outcome we want, whether it's a cash offer or we're doing a Zillow Flex or whatever, those go into specific ponds to specific agents. So that's the thing. On the back end of Sierra, you can create who's on those ponds, and you can also put rules in place too of how many leads they can get. Or let's say there's a rule of the pond of Zillow. If the phone rings out, and this is not how we do it on Zillow, but I'm just using this as an example. If the phone rings out, you can have it, if they don't answer, it can go into a round robin, or it can ring out and then to all of them. If it doesn't, it goes to the next group. I mean, there's so many different rules you can put into place that makes it to where your leads shouldn't be slipping by or not getting answered. And it's pretty robust, the back end components of it.
Awesome. And I flipped back to this slide because there's a question from Shannon about how you track how many conversations and follow-ups your agents are doing. And that's this dashboard right here, Shannon. You know, I imagine there's some reporting in Sierra, but, you know, I think the big thing is this backtracks from goals, reverse engineers those per agent, and you can sort and filter by specific agents within your team or even groups, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so we have it set up that if they mark their conversation in Sierra, it automatically populates into Sisu. Cool. So it will populate their dashboard for us to see, okay, you had 10 conversations today, or you had 20 conversations, or you didn't work, right? And so again, they're not having, they can, if they want to, they can go in and record off of their, Sisu's an app as well as it's a dashboard. But if they're just logging in and working in the database, it will automatically populate the dashboard as well. And it just gives us the insight. I mean, the dashboard's so powerful in so many ways. It's how we run our business, but it's also to help them run their business, right? Like if they're not doing the activities, we can't coach them. So the activities are the very basic foundation of real estate, of who are you talking to? What are you saying? And are you going on the appointments and meeting people? So if they're not willing to keep their dashboard, which you guys, I think this was pulled yesterday, I'm assuming, because I saw it and I texted my leader. But I'm like, if they're not willing to even have the conversations, then there's nothing that we can coach them on. So it starts with that initial, it starts with the initial activities, and then from there we can help them get them into production. And it's also if we're going to give them lead flow or not. So if they're not willing to work or have the conversations, we're not going to turn them on lead flow, because they have to show that they're doing something to be a contributor to our team. So
what great leverage to help push adoption for your agents. Do you want opportunities, and do you want to be coached to improve? If yes,
yep,
use the systems, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they have to use the system anyway, because we run everything out of it. So even from the very beginning, like to submit for a buyer under contract or listing under contract, we put all their goals. I mean, it's the core of who we are. But same thing, like if you want opportunities, then we have to show that you're working. Like that's just like the bare minimum. So, and this is how we track it. So,
awesome.
Well, and here's even a better thing that saved them time, either using our mobile app as well or through the desktop. Let's say they make a call, and there's a little pop-up box that says, what was your call outcome? They can select meeting set buyer as their call outcome. And guess what? It creates that buyer transaction
so cool.
in Sisu directly with the API. It's so cool.
I think you guys have the best integration at this point, which is powerful. Like, I mean, I'm obviously a Sisu and Sierra user, so I'm a fan, but we coach teams across the country that use different things. And I would say you guys have the best integration. So
thanks to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, it's a love fest.
Partnership.
Yeah, a couple more questions. You know, sorry, y'all, there's been so many. I'm trying to get through the best ones. You know, I like this one because, you know, I think it may dispel some notions here, but Paige again asked, like, how would you apply Sierra's Sisu stack for a very small team? Her perception is it seems better suited to a larger team model.
Oh no, like I actually think it's great because yeah, it's great because Sierra, the cool thing about Sierra is like Scott mentioned, is you're going to have your IDX website and your CRM and your e-alerts is what I call them, all in one platform. And so like just having that instead of having to go get a website plus a CRM, all of that, like it's all there. And then in terms of Sisu, like Sisu for a team, large or small, if you're going to have a team, if you want to run it like a business, you have to know your numbers. So it is the back end for any component of the numbers, but it also is the back end for transaction management and on and offboarding and stuff. And so I had Sisu when we had a team of 4. And it was how we ran our team of 4 with their dashboards and their goals. And now we have a team of, I think we're at 90 agents. And so really, it is a team platform. So I wouldn't tell you go get it if you're a solo agent. But if you have a small team, those two, the 2 tech stacks is all you need. And it will help you scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's some questions about, well, are they 2 separate products? Do they come together? I mean, there's a couple of questions about that. No, they are 2 separate solutions, right? There is the Sierra solution and the Sisu solution. And I think Francis is going to drop some links to do a demo into the chat. There's also a slide here at the end. I think that there's some, there they are, sisu.co demo, as well as their interactive schedule demo links. And she's going to post them down there as well. So you guys can kind of get a really good picture of the solution for your size of your team, right sizing the opportunity and seeing how they mesh together for your tech stack. And think about this, when you evaluate it, one last thing, you got to think about everything you're going to eliminate, right? Things you're not going to need. So you got to subtract those things off of the total, right? To kind of get yourself a net.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A couple of things I want to say, because I know we're at the top of the hour, Mac, is you guys, I'm going to be at Sierra Summit. So if you are, if you're wanting to come to Denver, I would love to see you. And if you're not going to make it to Sierra Summit, Brian and I and the Sisu team are hosting a Sisu Mastery that's 2 days behind the scenes of our business. It's actually how I met Scott a few years ago. We'd love to have you too. So that's in October. So Sisu will be sending out the info, but we would love to have you guys come join us at one of the 2 events. I'll tell you, this is how I've changed my business. It's just getting in proximity and picking people's brains. So I'd love to see you guys.
Yeah, October 10th and 11th in Denver for the Sierra Summit. And you guys are back in Utah for the Sisu Mastery?
Yeah, it's like the first week of November. I don't know, that November 6th to 8th. Thank you, Francis. So yeah, come hang out.
Come hang out. We love it. And I just wanted to express some gratitude, Scott, first of all, for helping move me along to this final slide here. I was so zoned in to the question that I lost track of my slide management responsibility. So I appreciate that. Sarah, Spring, grateful for the both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Spring, I know you're at Inman right now, and I wish you the best of luck at your speaking engagements. I understand you have a couple if anyone's there watching.
Yeah, I'm on stage today and tomorrow, and the cleaning girls are knocking on my door, so perfect timing.
Perfect. Well, we'll follow up, y'all, with some additional information for those of you that have tuned in. But to those of you that joined us to learn from Spring and Sarah and Scott, we appreciate your time. We're grateful for y'all and hope you learned a thing or two. If you want to learn more, check out the links that Francis shared. Otherwise, we'll see y'all next time. Take care, y'all.
Take care.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.